Hello friends, welcome to my channel Sushant Chesswise. Today we are continuing with our ongoing topic of learning with the world champions, or we will try to guess who is the world champion. The main objective is to learn the skills of attack here. So let's get started with the game quickly and reach the critical position. So the game starts with the French defense e4, e6, g4, d5 and c3. bb4 here would make it the whenever variation. nf6 played by black is the classical variation and d takes e4 is the Rubinstein variation. White has here e5, ed and bg5. White goes with bg5, one of the main lines, and black plays d7. Here e5 is more popular, e5 and d7 and bishop takes e7 or h4. These are the main ways of playing. White went bf6, bishop takes f6. We see many games by Vishwanathan Anand as well in these lines, especially after d takes e4 is played, we get similar positions. White goes nf3 here, same idea, if d takes e4 then ne4, in that bd3 short castle, bd3 queen e2 long castle are all possible. Here black goes castle, after castle bishop d3, keeping the idea of e5 on hold, and at some point white will go e5. Black normally plays c5, but see, because white has not committed e5, c5 can be met by e takes d5, e takes d5 and then maybe short castle. So black prefers to wait with re8, and after re8 white goes e5, be7 and here he plays h4. Very interesting move. White is trying to prepare some kingside attack. It looks like ng5 is there. Black strikes rightly with the move c5. What would you do as white here? This is the main critical position. So three candidate moves are there in this position. One is the bishop h7 check, for which white had played h4. It would be like a Greek gift sacrifice, but without the bishop on c1. That is why white needed the pawn on h4. After knight g5, there is just h6. So knight g5, h6, queen h5. Maybe there is nothing much over there. Black can just consider bg5, hg, queen g5 also. So white has to otherwise play a move like d takes c5. D takes c5 is also not that great right now. So white goes with the line bh7. What is the calculation? bh7, kh7, knight g5 check. He has to look at both kg6 and kg8. kh8 loses to queen h5. kh6 loses to knight f7. White goes bishop h7 check, king h7, knight g5. As I said, kh6 loses to nf7, kh8 loses to queen h5, qh7 and wait next move. So the main variation to be looked at is kg6. Generally this is the main line, but in this case white has a forced mate. There are three ways to play against kg6. qd3, qg4 and the h5 check. Since there is no bishop on c1, you can see that h5 is not very effective. So white goes qd3 check, this wins by force, f5, and here the strong move h5 check. See, the king is compelled to take on g5, otherwise kh6 and f7 wins, and after kg5, qg3, kh6, qg6 mates. So black went with kg8 of course, and now still comes queen h5. Do note that in the event of bishop g5, hg, kg8, then we get to the same line by queen h5. So that would just transpose. So queen h5, g5 forced, hg, now the threat is queen h8 mate, so only move king f8. White had seen till here, of course, this is the main position. White has two approaches here, one queen h8, ke7, qg7, and other is playing g6 directly. Somewhat better is g6 here. Now see, fg loses on the spot to qg6, and the point is that there is no ke7 because of qg7 checkmate. That is why the pawn on e5 plays a major role in these Greek gift sacrifices. Also there was cd4, which also wins after queen check, ke7, queen g7, threatening mate on f7, so rook f8, and now see queen f6 check. Very important idea. Now kd7 and white goes g7. Here see, queen f6 can be met by both gf8 knight check or e takes f6, rook g8, rook h8. Black went rook g8 and now see, still rook h8. There are two threats. One is queen into d8, main one, and queen f7 check. Black plays queen e8, stopping both but here white has the very strong knight d5. See, these kind of moves are somewhat difficult to find from a starting point, but at least from the point of c takes d4, when we played queen h8 check, we should try to calculate these things. Now see, ed is met by qd6 met, so knight c6, but here comes queen h6, it's game over. Threat is knight f6 and also rook g8 followed by knight f6. So see, e takes d5, but then qd6 checkmates. Black's try ke7 was necessary, and here g takes f7, rook f8. White played great chess still here, but what would you do here as white? See, white has two great options. One is castle followed by d takes c5, or playing the move d takes c5 at this very moment. Logical looks long castle. This is what white did, but somewhat better is the move dc5. We will see why. After long castle, black had the chance to play c takes d4. This happens to be a great defense actually. Very tricky one. See, knight b5 and knight is heading to d6. White often has winning position, but see here in this case, after knight c6, knight d6, there is knight e5, and the point is that after knight c8, rook c8, queen e5, white regained the piece, but qc7, black is happy to trade the queens, and after qg5 check 2, there is kf7. So we can say that black is doing well over there. Finally, if white goes direct queen g5, then just king d7, and see, queen g7 is met by b6, good move. And now knight d6 is met by bishop a6. Here too we see that after f4 d3, black is doing great. Of course, these lines are very difficult to judge because throughout you see white looks much better, but somehow black is holding on. And finally see, there is the move f4, to which black has to play precisely rook f7, nd6, and he should return the exchange here. See, otherwise qg6 and rook h7 is very strong to rook f8, especially there is qg5 check followed by qg7 as well. So queen f8, but here see again nf7, queen f7, queen f7, kf7. White, we can say, is not much better here. In fact, black is slightly better. White can try rook h8, but black has b6, bb7. So this position is also not winning, although practically they look good. That is why I think black felt that he is already losing and he played the move a6. Let's get to that. Black played a6 here, stopping nb5, but now see d takes c5. White doesn't miss his chance anymore, and this time he is very accurate. Let's see what's happening. Knight d7 played by black, rook f7 is too slow. There is just queen g5 check, ke8, then there is rh8. Also to rook f7, we can consider knight d5, e takes d5, queen g5, which is even stronger. Knight d7, and now see, rook takes d5. This is the killer blow. The knight is required. If knight d5 ed, then it's not that strong. Now we see that ed is met by knight d5 check, ke6, knight f4 check. This check is the decisive one, and after ke7, e6, the pawns, the queen and the knight, we were mating it here. Multiple threats. One is nd5 mate, other is qg5 check. So nf6 forced, and now see queen e5, the winning move. There is no defense to mg6, so this would be losing. Black tries queen a5, but here there comes queen g5 check, kf7, rook h7. White's attack is at its peak now. Just he has to bring all the pieces, and in these kind of positions one has to be very careful as well. See, black goes rook g8. It looks as though knight d4 and knight d6 would win, right? So instead knight d4 allows ed and the king gets placed on e6, and if rook d7 first, bd7 and e4, trying to checkmate by nd6, see queen e1, and white is mated, so white has to be careful. So white goes rook d4, strong move, and now see rook is shifting to f4, hardly there is any defense. Rook f4, ke8, rook takes g7 is winning. So black goes qc5, trying to get the queen to f8, guarding the f8 square. Also queen e5 is a threat, but see, now comes Also to note that after knight c5, the same point which I mentioned, rook f4 check, ke8, rg7, qg7, nd7 doesn't help at all because qg8, ke7, rf7 mates. So these small variations are very important points of analysis. So black went qc5 and now see, there comes rook d7. You must have guessed this move because see, knight was heading to e4. In the previous line there was queen e1 mate, but now the queen is on c5. So after takes, knight e4, there is hardly any defense to nd6. Let's see what is the threat. After qb4, white finishes the game spectacularly with nd6, king f8 and queen f6. The killer blow, e takes f6 forced and rook f7 mates. The game ended this way. Brilliant attack by Alekhine here. See, Alekhine was the world champion. So his attacking style is more calculative, not intuitive like Capablanca or Mikhail Tal. So he relies more on calculation point. Of course, he was one of the greatest attackers. I hope you are liking these lessons. Do let me know in the comments below. Thanks for your time.